Welcome back. I'm here today with Ray Zinn. He's author of the book, Tough Things First. Ray, welcome to today's show.
Thank you. Glad to be here. Thank you, Alan.
So, for the sake of our listeners, can you give us the background, through your career history, and then maybe give them inspiration of why you went through and wrote this book?
Sure. Glad to. So I started in the industry in 1963, the semiconductor industry, that is, in 1963 at Fairchild Semiconductor. Back in those days, it was called Fairchild Camera Instruments. And so I went to various companies, and at the end of my career working for a company, that was in 1976, I was working for a company called Electromask down in Woodland Hills, California. And I'm kind of the creator, the innovator of the wafer stepper, which is the primary piece of equipment that's used in manufacturing semiconductors. I got in a little bit ahead of myself. I was a little more entrepreneurial than my company wanted me to be. And because the stepper never became a real value until 1981, and I created it in 1975. So they said you shouldn't work for a company and be your own boss as you would. Tom Peters said, if you're not getting fired, you're not trying hard enough, and I got fired a lot. So decided to start my own company, and that was in 1978. November, I started my Krell. I founded a company. It was primarily founded with $300,000 of our own money, and then $300,000 of bank debt. So $600,000 total to start a semiconductor company. So the covenants I had to keep were that I had to be profitable every year, and that was a difficult thing to be profitable right from the get-go. But that's what we did. So I was profitable every single year except for 2002 when the dot-com implosion hit. Then we had to consolidate 2 fabs down to 1 and wrote off $29 million, but only had a $50,000 gap loss, so it's just not bad.
Yeah.
So in 37 years, the company lost a total of $50,000 in its total history. The advantage we had, of course, is that being profitable, we grew nicely and tried to grow organically as opposed to just by acquisitions. So that's a little bit about my background. I was the CEO, president, and chairman of the board from the entire time the company was founded until the current, when we sold the company in August of this year to a company called Microchip.
Now I understand that's the longest standing record for a CEO in the Valley?
That's right. So again, I just kept running the company, and even as old as I am, in fact, the record will probably never be broken because how many people can say they've served as a CEO for 37 years without being quite old, as you would. And I started at 39, and so here I am 37 years later, and now off writing my book and trying to help the younger people learn about running a business. So
when we talk about this book, Tough Things First, where did the inspiration begin?
Okay, so in 1984, because of the way I started the company, I had this friend, a real close friend, that kept asking me, how'd you do it? How'd you start a company with so little money? But every other month he'd ask me to do the same thing. Tell me how you started the company. So I told him, I said, Owen, I'll tell you what I'll do is I will record it, and every time you want to hear it, just push the play button. So then as years went on, people would say, boy, you really need to write a book about your experience running this company because it's so well known and so well revered in the industry, and that you've been so long in the industry. I'm probably the longest serving icon in my industry, more than 50 years in semiconductors. They said, you need to write a book. And so my son-in-law 3 years ago said, I'd like you to write a book. And so now he says, I'll help you. So he started the outline, but wasn't able to keep it going. And so then in June of last year, I decided, hey, if you don't have a goal, you don't have a plan. So I said, I'm going to set a goal to have this book written by the end of 2014. And so we did, and then we put it out, and McGraw-Hill picked it up, and here we are.
When you're looking at all the years that you've served in business, what drove you to technology changing, and I'm sure that company had to reinvent itself every couple of years as the advancements in technologies came. But how did you remain successful through that whole process?
Okay, so first of all, you have to love what you do. As Confucius says, if you love what you do, you don't work a day in your life. And so, you have to love what you do, and I loved what I did. I loved my company because I love my people. Everybody has the same kind of facilities, buildings, brick and mortar, that's all the same. But what makes it different is the people. And so I just fell in love with my people. And I had a very flat organization. I didn't have a lot of bureaucracy. Didn't have any bureaucracy, actually, and it didn't allow any swearing or any condescending foul language. That made it feel more like home, like a family. And so we had very low turnover. My company had probably half the turnover of the average in the valley. And the way we did that, of course, is just by innovation and keeping our people focused on helping Micro grow, making it feel more like theirs as opposed to mine.
Ray, I need to take a quick break. I'm visiting here today with Ray Zinn. He's author of the book Tough Things First. We'll be right back after these messages.
I love fishing, with my family.
I think it would be easier to use a net.
It was so much fun.
The times when we are together, it makes it all the more worth it.
Having Dad teach them how to cast a fly rod, and
as long as we're doing stuff together, we're having fun.
Some people see a father and a son fishing together, while others see a succession plan. Welcome back. I'm visiting here today with Ray Zinn. He's the author of the book Tough Things First, and we covered your background in the first segment. But when we're looking at this book, and who did you gear the audience for?
Okay, so when I first thought of the book, it was more to be a historical, meaning I was just going to talk about what happened in those 37 years. But as we started writing the book, we said, what's the purpose of the book? Who do we really want to get to? And if I look at the leadership principles, these are really life principles. They're not just, what I am at work, but how I'm at home and how do I live my life. And because the way we are as a person is how successful we're going to be, whether we're running a company, whether we're running our family, whether we're just an employee. So the book is primarily geared to anyone who wants to better themselves. They want to kind of get up and get going in life and involve themselves deeply in whatever task that they're pursuing. So the book is really geared for anyone. Even though it's lessons I've learned running a company for 37 years, the principles in there are everlasting. They're time immemorial.
When you're defining leadership, what attributes do you focus in on the most?
Okay, thank you, Alan. The real focus on leadership is what is the concept of leadership? And it's really, there's no I in team. Okay, so if you have a flat organization, if you break those silos down and have your intra-departmental and interdepartmental where they're the same, then you're going to have leadership. Leadership is not where we form these silos and we have these conflicts between departments, because the efficiencies fall off. So what I define leadership is there's no I in team, where you have a flat organization, or as flat as possible as you can have, and where you really involve the departments where they're working together and not against each other. And no politics, no bureaucracy.
Why is it important to do the tough things first?
Because that's how you get most efficiency out of your day. If you focus on getting rid of the things you don't want to do, I call it loving the things you hate. If you get rid of those, look how fast your rest of your day is going to go, because you'll have gotten rid of all those difficult things that bug you. Because I'll tell you, if you have a problem that you don't want to deal with, you're going to be thinking about that problem all day long, and it's going to cause you to lose efficiency and effectiveness. You won't focus as well. So what I did every morning was I thought, well, what are the things I don't want to do today? And those are the things I did first. I got up at 5:30 every morning. In fact, it's written in Greg McKeown's book, Essentialism, he talks about me. He says I'm the quintessential disciplinarian, not in the sense of the word that I do what I don't want to do, and I get them done well. And so that's what focusing on doing the tough things first is.
When you're running Micrel, how did you create that culture of growth and keep it sustained?
Well, if you have an organization where you let everybody be an entrepreneur, and everyone, even an employee, can be an entrepreneur, because an entrepreneur is not defined by a box. See, so it's the box that keeps us from really growing, okay? Because you can understand that a box has got finite perimeter to it. So we talk about going from the known, which is the box, to the unknown and a little bit further, which means now you're looking out far enough in advance that you can grow, because each business cycle is about 5 years. So we've been in business 37 years, so that's at least 7 cycles that we've been through. So if you're not thinking ahead, if you can't look out 5 years, for example, if it takes 2 years to design the product, and then it takes you 2 or 3 years to get it introduced, you're almost at the end of the cycle. So that means you got to look, 2 or 3 years before the cycle starts if you're going to be successful during that business cycle. That's the key. The key is being able to focus outside the box. Get out of that box. Don't be trapped by that box.
I'm visiting here today with Ray Zinn. He is the author of Tough Things First. Ray, I need to take another break, and we'll be right back after these messages. Since you can't take your wealth with you, spend time with your family. Welcome back. I'm visiting here today with Ray Zinn. He's the author of the book Tough Things First, and we've been talking about essentially instilling leadership within the companies and helping to build things of lasting value. But when you're creating, principles or concepts or processes in the company, how do you instill in the employees to get everybody on the same page and make sure that the processes are enduring cycle after cycle?
Okay, Alan, the enduring companies are companies that have a solid base. I liken it to asparagus. Asparagus grows, 10 inches in a day. And so what they do is they cut the asparagus at night. You'll notice sometimes the asparagus is bent over. That's because the wind was blowing as it was growing. That's why it was bent. But it has no food value. Asparagus, if you lived off asparagus, you'd lose weight, because it takes more energy to break the fiber down than the value you're getting from the nutrients. So what we wanted to do was build an enduring company, meaning that had to have substance. So it means it can't grow like a rocket. It's got to have a stable base, and you have to build in the infrastructure so it is long lasting. That means you've got to surround yourself with very good people who have similar values that you do, people who value the dignity of every individual, that won't use condescending language, that are people who will uplift, as we know that which does not uplift is evil. Okay, and so what we need to do is make sure that when we meet with our people and we encourage them, that we do it in an uplifting way. And so that's the key, is to an enduring company, is to have an environment where they can grow, where there's substance to whatever they do, the encouragement they get, the praise that they get. And we met every Friday to have kind of like a correlation meeting where we talked about issues the company had. We had reports from all the different departments, and they talked about their issues. And it was good because the whole team was there, all the various departments. Mm-hmm. That's what I said earlier about when you have your inter-department and your intra-department, where there's homogeneity, where they're singing on the same sheet of music. And that was key to us, is to have those regular meetings where the inter-department meetings, departments got together to talk about their various problems.
every company is going to go through different cycles, both up and down. I think back to the early 2000s with the dot bomb, as we called it, and then 2008 to the collapse or the restructuring of financial markets. When you witnessed and were trying to run a company with all the negative influences in the world, how did you keep things going and keep everyone up?
Okay, that's a good point, because you got to be up when you're down, and so we forecasted or predicted the dot-com implosion in May of 2000. We actually saw that was going to happen. Our company has been monitoring the industry's cycles and dynamics, since the early 90s, and so we had a good background to help us forecast what the industry was going to do in the next cycle. Even though we saw that cycle coming, we knew it was going to be very hard on us, but we got ready. So we were vigilant, we were prepared, and so even though we lost nearly half our revenue, we didn't have to set the company, because it was prepared and ready, had that self-reliance that we were ready and be able to handle that difficulty. We had to consolidate 2 fabs down to 1. I took a $50,000 gap loss, but still the company, because we were prepared and we were able to sustain ourselves through that downturn, the company still went on profitable for the year, if you look on a non-GAAP basis. But the company, again, was, I think, prepared for those eventualities. And each cycle that we've had, even the one in 2009, we were prepared for it. We knew it was going to happen, again, because we saw it, and we got ready for it, so that it wasn't a big surprise. That's how you build endurance. You pace yourself. That's what endurance is. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. Guys that go around sprinting all the time don't last very long. So what we look at is we're looking for each cycle. We know that there's about 5 years, so we plan for the next cycle, and we're ready when it happens.
When you're looking out in the companies, I guess we're running through the history of Micrel, one thing that you never did is take venture capital money. Why?
That's a very good question, Alan. Because I wanted to own the company. I did not want, because I had a view of an enduring company, and if venture capital want to be out in 5 to 7 years, it's not possible in our industry to really do that effectively. That's why very few semiconductor companies succeed. We recently acquired a company called Desera. There's $72 million of venture capital put in it. We bought it for $7 million. Bought it 10 cents on the dollar. And so again, here's an example of, if you run your company as you would like a skyrocket or like fireworks, you fizzle out, and then what have you got? So we didn't want that approach. We wanted to be able to grow the company and sustain it, and to do that, you look more like a hoist than fireworks. And so that's why we did it the way we did without VC money, because we had them on our backs from day one to spend the money and get in and get out. Most of my industry raises over $50 million of VC money, and we did it with $300,000. So you can see the difference is that with $300,000, it takes a little longer, right? I mean, you got to be patient, but you have endurance. 37 years, very few semiconductor companies ever survive for 37 years.
As the CEO of the organization, what's the difference between personal discipline and organizational discipline?
Okay, but they're similar. Okay, so the discipline you have is the discipline you're going to convey to your team. If they know that you're going to do whatever it takes, no excuses, that's that personal discipline that you're going to have. And if you exude that, if you have that consistency, you're there to work on time, and you're not watching the clock. If you're willing to answer questions, that's the personal discipline that you have. Your willingness to do whatever it takes, no excuses, and be able to invite them to express themselves. They're going to get the confidence then to have the organizational discipline from their various departments to be able to help the company sustain itself.
I've been visiting here today with Ray Zinn. He's author of the book Tough Things First. And Ray, if listeners want to get a copy of the book, where would they go?
Barnes & Noble, Amazon, Books Inc. I mean, it's available. Get it now.
Great. Thanks for coming on today's show.
My pleasure, Alan. Thanks for inviting me.
We'll be right back after these messages.